We're gonna have to do some editing, Cody, because it skipped out.
I'm just gonna leave it. That's fine.
No one. I clicked it because we thought we were gonna be able to pause it, and so
Is it going now?
I got it restarted. So we'll just somehow merge them.
Okay. Maybe I'll just add 2 videos.
Yeah.
It's on.
On, ready to go.
Flathead X, we can also use it to open the roof, but Flathead X isn't really that good for roof operations because say you get like some wood shingle or something, that is going to be real hard. Versus the Pickhead X, we can actually use it as a fulcrum to get the shingles out of the way if we need to. So Flathead X usually more for striking. Say we're going to force a door, a 2-man operation. We don't have the Halligan, we don't have the Flathead. Really more of a striking tool than a cutting tool. If we had to cut down a tree or something that blocked the road, which happens a lot in Austin, we use that. So power saws. So we don't have any on our engines, but we do have them on our Quints and ladders and rescues. We have a wood cutting chainsaw, and then we have the Ventmaster that we use for the vertical ventilation. And then we also have a rotary saw. For us at Station 3, we don't use the diamond tip. We have it's called Piranha. It just works better on everything, wood, metal, everything like that. And then the nugget blade, probably going to use that on a commercial building with like tar and gravel roof. That's probably what we're going to use the rotary saw on. Just some examples, obviously turnout gear. Your pickhead versus your flathead. You use that Flathead X on the Halligan when we're forcing doors. The pickhead here, you can pop some shingles if you had to. This is the pig. It also has a flathead with a little cutout that actually made in Austin by an Austin firefighter. This is our Ventmaster saw, and then our rotary saw. And then you can change the blades out here. Either have that carbide tip or the Piranha tip, what we have, and then a nugget blade. Just continuing more tools. So pike poles usually come in 6 to 12 feet. We're just going to push and pull the ceiling down, but we also carry on our units New York hooks and San Francisco hooks. Which I personally like more. The pike pole is good for sheetrock, and that's about all it's good for. New York, you can get a purchase point and pull some boards down if you have to, and then same thing with San Francisco. And then I have a video later showing firefighter pulling ceiling with the New York hook. Trash hook is also good for pulling ceiling. You can punch it up and then turn it, come down to get a big old piece of sheetrock versus just getting a little piece. And then it's also super good for sound on the roof when you're doing roof operations. What we also need for ventilation, we're going to need some fans if we're going to use the positive pressure ventilation, also known as PPV, to lift the smoke up out of the house when it's on fire, if we have a good flow path through the house. And then smoke ejectors, we used to have these in Austin, but we don't have these anymore. And then it's using negative pressure ventilation. It just draws the smoke out of the house, so that way it's usually used at the end of the fire, so easier for overhaul. This is your pike pole. So this has the round handle. They also come in like an I-beam handle, but with the I-beams they're a lot flimsier. They come in 6 and 12, but usually this is your New York right here, and then this is your San Francisco, and this is your trash hook. These usually are always 6 feet. Just easier, a lot pull ceiling, pull lath out. Much easier with these metal tools. Good thing about the pike pole though is because it's usually made out of fiberglass. If it's wet, it will conduct electricity a little, but not. It won't hurt you. Versus these, if you hit a hot wire, they could hurt you. This is just showing an electric fan. These are the types that we have in Austin, but just a different type. And these were the smoke ejectors that we used to have. the video.
You want to go through it?
Ready?
So we're just gonna watch this video. This is a New York firefighter.
I'm looking at the ceiling. I just now realized that we got sheetrock overhead. But they might have put the sheetrock over the last flat. We'll find out in a second. Same concept on the ceiling, except that because I'm not, this is a high ceiling, and I'm not that tall, I'm not gonna be able to use leverage on that. If I've got an 8-foot ceiling, and I am Mickey Lewis, then I could probably get it in there and do the same thing and pull it down using the leverage. If I've got something for the back end of this to bite onto. If I don't, it's not gonna work, obviously. So what I've gotta do is use this end. Now, if you'll notice on this, there's a couple of features to this hook. One is it's got a flat side, okay, and a beveled side with a little bit of a keen edge, not sharp, keen. It also has an angle here, angle there, and if you'll notice, on the bottom side of this, the surface area. And just like fighting fire, just like burning something, it's all about surface area and mass. You got a lot of surface area for that. You're gonna be able to get a better bite on anything. So first thing I've gotta do is find out where, oh, you can't hear me like that. Try to find out where my joists are, which way they're running, try to get next to one of them. So simply, okay, found one real close, and I'm thinking there's not much up there. It works good on sheetrock too. So if this is just sheetrock, I got that, I'm gonna score it like a paper towel, okay? So I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna score this. I'm gonna take just a little bit of time in the setup, okay? Enough of it laughing. That way, if I go to pull it, I get a control of where it goes. So right now what I've done is I've opened it up on this side, and I'm gonna have to turn my back on you because I screwed up a little bit, but that's okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this side, even though you might think this would be better, this side won't get hung up on wires. You pull right out. Now there's two school spots. This is just sheetrock. Back towards me a little bit. That way I'm out of the debris field a little bit. That didn't work out exactly like planned, but you get the idea. The other one is, I've got a lath. Now, if I start pulling it down from here, all that's coming right on me. So if I stand back away from it, fighting it, but I'm able to get back and away. Okay? So you see that. And if you get right along the joist, it comes off a little easier usually. And you can go back and let it. And knock a lot of this down. So I'm going to try. And none of this ever works out like you say you want it to. So I'll show you with the sheetrock. There we go. See how it flaps like that? When you're in a sheetrock room, you're going to get a big sheet of it flat. When that flaps down, the worst thing you're going to get is that sheetrock's going to come down and maybe catch you a little bit. It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to drop it on your head. You're out from under the debris field. A little bit of sheetrock coming out. And that keeps all of that debris that way, and I can step back out of it. Just don't get yourself cornered so much. So we had a little bit of both on that, so that worked out pretty good. And then this will be fun. Okay. So I see they're batting. Use it to your advantage. Find that leverage point. Use it to your advantage. It doesn't matter. But watch what you're doing. Be wary of it, and recognize those little things that you can use for speed and efficiency.
So I've had some good talks just about getting out of the way of the debris, knowing where it is, but we may not have that luxury if we're pulling ceiling in a smoky environment. We may not have the luxury of being able to see exactly where the joists are going or having the time to score it like you did. You may just have to get it, do an inspection hole real fast, if that's what your captain or your lieutenant's asking of you, and just pull it down. With ventilation, you know, we need to have a water supply, we need to have hose lines in place. So if we're going to use our nozzle for hydraulic ventilation, we're going to have it on a wide fog pattern, and that's going to slowly take it to a window. That's going to push all that smoke out. And then, like I said before, just make sure our tack lines are in place and it's coordinated with whoever's in charge of the ventilation group. So we're just going to talk about a little tool safety. So for our cutting tools, you know, make sure you have the right tool for the job. That's simple. Make sure we're in PPE. No one wants to get hurt. And hearing protection is big. I think we forget that a lot in AMP. A good trick is to have some ear pro in your pocket if you need to. Know what's around you. Make sure you're not going to hit anybody or anyone else, and then just keep the zone clear of everyone. And then with cutting tools, make sure you're taking care of your tools, because then they'll take care of you. If it's dull, not sharp, not clean, it's probably not going to be a good tool for you to use. Push-pull tools. When you're pushing or pulling the ceiling with pipe pull, just be aware. We talked about the falling ceiling, the roof materials. And then if we're not hammering down, because that's just going to bring a small piece of sheetrock, we're slowly pulling down with our weight so we get a whole sheet at a time. Work smarter, not harder. And then obviously we're not going to use our push-pull tools to pry and try and pry things open. But if you are doing your 360 around the house on a fire with your lieutenant or your captain, totally fine to use a New York hook to take a window. If we have to, if we are going to open up a flow path horizontally and use PPV, definitely can use it to take a window. Just try not to use it to be the only thing to force the door. If you're using Halligan and that as like a cheater bar, totally fine with it. But we're trying not to bend these New York hooks and these San Francisco hooks. And then just maintain tools. Obviously, AFD, we don't really have wood handles. Some other partners do. So just make sure you check for damage. Power saws, right saw, right blade. The material you're going to cut, obviously, if it's a wood shingle, we're taking the vent master up. But if it's tar and gravel, we're taking the nugget blade on the rotary saw. PPE again, obviously. And then, obviously, every shift change, we inspect the tools so we know they're good to go. Obviously, I feel like this is self-evident. We're not going to use flammable liquids around in the flammable atmosphere. That's why, hopefully, someday we go to all-electric power tools. And for Station 3, we actually we bought an electric chainsaw just for that reason. If we needed to get up somewhere and cut a little hole, maybe it's too much smoke, cuts out the engine, something like that, we can get to it still. Again, just make sure you have a safe working zone. Know the guidelines, make sure we're not killing the saws and then just incur more costs, and shops isn't going to like us anymore. Like I said, keep them sharpened, and then start all the cuts at full throttle. So before we bury it into whatever material we are, make sure it's at high RPMs. Portable fans, know before we get to work what kind of weather conditions we have. If it's going to be a wind-driven event or not. Just know which way the wind's going. When we do our PVD and we put the fan into the door whenever our lieutenant or captain calls for it. Just make sure we are going up to the door. We do a check with our hand from top to bottom, making sure that we covered the entire doorway. This won't really apply to us. We don't use electrical cords or generators for our fans. We're going to do PPV, make sure we have a good flow path. We need to coordinate with the attack lines and make sure when we're turning the door we already have the hose set, because when you turn that fan in, we're just giving the fire what it wants. We're just giving it more oxygen and more fuel. So it could, if we don't have the proper things in place, the fire could get worse instead of better. And then we're just make sure that methods of creating a ventilation opening in all roof types, and then just beware of backdraft situations. Nozzles, basically just comes down to make sure there's no damage and make sure all the nozzles are working how they're supposed to. And then we're just gonna make sure our hose lines are well maintained and that they're folded properly when put back. Just like in our policies, life safety, number one thing. If we're hurt, we can't help other people, so let's make sure we take care of ourselves and then we can take care of the occupants. But we gotta ask ourselves these questions. Are the occupants awake or asleep? Have the occupants become overcome by smoke and carbon dioxide poisoning? Are the building occupants alive or dead based off what we're seeing when we pull up? And are the building occupants lost, or they found an area of safe refuge within the building? The safe area of refuge is probably going to be more on your mid-rises, your high-rises, where they actually have that, not like a residential home. So ventilation can help mitigate some of the stresses above, but we got to ask ourselves, are we going to start a vent before the search and rescue operations at the same time, or is the fire need to be attacked before beginning ventilation? So just very situational dependent based off what you see when you pull up to the house or whatever the fire is at. And then this is like what we should be thinking about when we pull up to a fire. You know, what kind of structure is it? How old is it? Because that can tell us what kind of material it's made out of, what kind of roofing, how they built it back in the day is different than how they built it today. How and where ventilation should be facilitated. Any natural openings we can use is it already self-vented out of the roof, or so we don't need to get on the roof if that's the case. And then just, obviously these are all the hazards when it comes to a fire. You get a visual impairment from all the smoke, toxic flammable gases from all the stuff catching on fire in the house. The fire's taking all the oxygen, and then just obviously watch out for backdraft and flashovers. This is just a quick once over. Everyone should read the ventilation policy. This is just the big takeaways. We have two types of ventilation: horizontal, which we can just go through the house instead of getting on the roof or anything, or vertical, where we actually go on the roof and cut a hole. It's going to be usually probably a 2x6 or a 2x8 hole, usually as close to the fire room as you can. And we can do ventilation with different methods. Natural is just letting the wind come through the house, having an entry and an exit, having a good flow path through there. Positive pressure is where we take that fan, turn it in, and we probably take a window somewhere near the fire room, and then to create that flow path and push all that smoke out, so that way the attack lines have an easier way of getting there so they can fight the fire. And then obviously talk about negative with the hose lines, just either the smoke ejectors, which we don't carry, or using your nozzle on wide fog pattern and pushing that air out, the smoke out. But that probably won't be till after the fire has been knocked down. And then this is big. This is we call it positive pressure attack instead of PPV. It's basically PPV with the attack hose lines, making sure the captain, lieutenant, whoever's performing the ventilation, whoever's performing the fire attack are talking and making sure they came up with a good plan. And then ventilation, normally a ladder company or flexibility. you may be asked to do horizontal ventilation as an engine crew, but normally vertical vent will always be a ladder or a rescue. The AFD policy says like a good way to do it if you can to vertical vent is to do it from the aerial ladder, cut a 2x6 or 2x hole, or taking out a skylight. But you know, some houses don't have skylights, so we can't always count on that. When we start cuts, we start from top to bottom, and then we make sure that whichever way we cut, the wind is going to go away from us. That way, when you make your cuts, you're not inhaling a bunch of smoke. But you should have your stuff on either way. But it's just so you don't want that smoke covering up your cuts that you're going to make, because that can be dangerous. Another thing good about our policies, we talk about VEIS opportunities, which is vent, enter, isolate, search. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to take a ladder,
We're all good?
yeah,
Okay.
use it to a window or bust the window, and then go through there. There'll be another guy behind you with a tick. You'll enter, you're going to go find the door, check outside the hallway, and then you're going to shut that door and search that room for any possible victims. And those are the big key takeaways of ventilation policy. And that's it. Any questions?
Can a New York hook be used in San Francisco? Or San Francisco hook be
Yes,
used in New York?
it's just based off where they were made,
Oh.
where they started. So San Francisco hook was good because you could get through the boards and you could base off the construction.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you all.